I can't believe I'm getting paid to do this. Like, I love this. So that's how I got into it. And then I worked for other facilities, about 4 or 5 of them. So I did work under other doctors. And then after COVID, a year after COVID, I resigned and started my own business, my own place, which they told me couldn't be done, but I did it.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Beyond the Bar podcast. I am Denise Toba, your host, and today we have a really dynamic guest. She is making waves in the wellness and fitness community. She's known as the StretchBoss on Instagram. Tina Rivera, she's a specialist in fascial stretch therapy, and she's a former powerlifter. And this woman is dynamic. She has a unique approach to helping people achieve better body awareness and flexibility. She is a healer. She is extremely unique seeker, constantly trying to figure out how to help people feel better. So I just cannot wait to dive into her story and find out what drives her. Tina, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. How are you,
So
Felicia? How's that?
great, great. Thank you. You know, this has been a long time coming, I know, and we have never, but it's going to be well worth it. It's like save
Yes.
best for last. We have never met in person. We spoke a little bit over the phone, but I've noticed on social media, on Instagram, as someone as someone devoted to working out and just getting a regular body work and just sort of going through various transitions in my life and trying different things to feel better. There is something unique about your videos and how you were showcasing how you were working with people, athletes, and there was a great energy and it was powerful at the same time. So it was very intriguing. And so you shared with me that you had an interesting journey from car business essentially to becoming the stretch boss. What sparked your passion for wellness?
So it was one of those things, in hindsight, you're like, why didn't I do that before? So health and wellness has always been part of my life. I've been training since I was about 17, 18 years old. Always in the gym, working out. I ran track in high school. But I did it for my personal, like, enjoyment. It wasn't something that I thought that I could make a living out of. I even went to school at one point for nutrition, but that's
Mm.
when I got into the car business. I got sucked into the car business. I was making really good money, and I said, I don't need to go to school anymore and make more money than some of these teachers out here that are graduating with a degree. So I got kind of sucked in that world. And it served me. I learned how to deal with people. Obviously, customer service is a big thing. So there are things that I learned on how to handle certain situations when you're dealing with people one on one. So that was a good takeaway from it. But after being in the car business for, I want to say, maybe over 6.5, 7 years, I got fired. I got let go. And I didn't know what I was going to do with my life because I knew I didn't want to go back to being in the car business. At that time, I was just burnt out. I was overworked. I got tired of selling people things that they didn't need. Commission, everything is commission based. So you're doing a lot of things on the side. So I said, what am I going to do? So I had my personal trainer certification, but I never used it because I had a full-time job, 401k, great insurance. And I said, well, you know what? While I'm unemployed, let me just start training people and doing that as a side hustle until I figure out what direction I want to go in with my life. As I started to train people, I started to notice that people had no body awareness, and things that were easy, functional movements, squatting, lunging, they weren't able to do those things without pain. And a lot of them would, would say, "Oh, I can't squat because my back hurts," or after I get done squatting, I have lower back pain, or I can't lunge because I have knee pain, or my ankles are tight. So I started to do my research, and just in my health journey, me training for a couple of years, just things that I use that actually helped me in my fitness journey. So I started implementing it with my clients, and they actually started to like that part of the workout or the session rather than the actual exercises that I was trying to get them to do, because they were actually getting some relief from the things that I was doing, whether it be stretching, myofascial release. And this is all the things that I just learned just online and researching on my own, and things that I had done, that I had personally used on myself. And then
Mm.
someone saw me at the gym working with someone, and they were like, you should consider going to school for physical therapy. And I was like, I don't even know what that is, because I never got injured. So and I was like, what is that? Yeah. So they
Right.
explained it to me, and they're like, it's kind of like what you're doing. It's a personal trainer, but the things that are involved, you teach people how to do certain exercises, and you do tissue work. So I looked into it, and at that time I was collecting unemployment. And then someone is like, I think they'll pay for you to go back to school if that's something
Mm.
you're interested in. So I looked it up, and God bless me. I wish I could remember her name, but this woman that was my counselor, she basically like put my whole schedule together, told me, yes, they will pay for my first 2 years of school as long as I have
Wow.
a C or a B, I fail any classes. And she had it all mapped out for me. She said my second year the unemployment was going to run out, so I had to figure out how I was going to make ends meet, because at that time I had to go to clinicals, and clinicals is like a full-time job, basically working for free. And so she's like, you have to figure out how you're gonna, pay your rent, or do you have someone that can assist you while you're trying to do your clinicals. So I had to figure that out as well. But when I went for physical therapy, I had to take a test. I'm actually a licensed physical therapist assistant, so that's how I got into rehabilitation. And when I had to go drop off my paperwork, I can't describe it to people, but it was like a light bulb went off. And I was like,
Mm.
oh, this is what I was meant to do. Like, I just found my purpose. And from
Really?
that moment, it was, yeah, I was like, there's no plan B. Like, I have to make this work. I don't care what I have to do. If I have to work,
Mhm.
go to school full time, but work at night, like, this is what I was meant to do. I can't even, like I said, it's one of those things when you know, you know. And
Yeah.
then as I engrossed and I started learning about the anatomy, everything just kind of came to me. It was just like second nature. And so I was like,
Mm.
okay, I'm in a groove here. Like, I like this, people. Um, and then that was it. And then when I graduated, I was like, you guys are paying me to do this? Because I could do this for free. I was doing it,
Yeah.
on people in the gym just to like test things out, and a couple of friends of mine. But I was like, I can't believe I'm getting paid to do this. Like, I love this. Um, so that's how I got into it. And then I worked for other facilities, about four or five of them. So I did work under other doctors. And then after COVID, a year after COVID, I resigned and started my own business at my own place, which they told
Wow.
me couldn't be done, but I did it. So,
Love
um,
it.
yeah, so that was something that was interesting too, because I always wanted to have my own space, but they had said that that wasn't something they'd seen a PTA do before, and they didn't know if it was something that I could pull off, but I did it. So, and now I'm here.
You didn't take no for an answer.
No, I never do. I think that's all part of being an entrepreneur. We're just
Yeah.
resilient, and we just keep pushing. Even if you tell me no, I'm still gonna keep. Someone at some point, somebody's gonna say yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? It's like when somebody says no, bring it. I want to hear 10 no's, because that means that
Yes.
I'll be the first one who'll prove to you that it can be done. So, but seriously, can you go to maybe the age of, I don't know, 12, or maybe even younger, 10, and connect with what you're doing today? Was there any sort of an indication of of sort of the interest or passion? Was there anything there at that time as a young girl that if you really
Yes.
think about that moment and what you're doing today, it makes a perfect sense for you because it's so aligned with what you're doing today?
Yeah. Yeah. Gym was my favorite. Gym was my favorite class, and I used to like do I mean, I think I have awards from when I was in middle school because they would give awards for like I don't know, whatever best person at at gym,
Yeah.
most flexible. So I used to win all those awards. So so yeah, at that young age, and I was serious about it. Like other kids, gym is gym. You just play, you just do whatever. But I was like really
Yeah.
serious. And we had a task to do. If they were asking us how many push-ups can you do today, we're doing football. Like I really took whatever task or skill they gave us. I was like really serious about it when other kids were probably just like, well, this is just, for us to buy time until it's time for us to go to math or science or something like that. But gym was like one of my favorite things to do. And I didn't look at it as a time to just like slack off. It was like, okay, we're going to play a sport. All right, I'm really serious about this today.
Yeah. So what is your personal routine? Workout, body work? What do you do?
So body work, I have a gentleman that I work with, that I used to work with, and so his technique is similar to mine. So every now and then I'll have him come in and he'll work on me. But to be honest with you, it's like doctors. We're like the worst patients. So we can give to everybody else, but we're like the last. I'm like, I really have to be hurting in order for me to like sit down or lay down and get some body work. My workout routine is because my background is powerlifting, I always incorporate the major lifts. So I still squat, deadlift, and bench when I'm training. It's some variable, doesn't have to exactly be like with a barbell. Either I'll do it on the Smith machine, with kettlebells. Same thing with benching and deadlifting. I have different variations of deadlifts, but I do a lot more strength training. I'm not. I'm in my mid 40s, so I'm not big on cardio because I feel like I need to hold muscle because as we get older, yes,
Yeah.
you you lose muscle and you're more likely to get osteoporosis as far as like bone density. So I try to stay in more of a strength training realm. And if I do cardio, it's usually like sprints or something like that. But
Mhm.
it's nothing where I'm like running on the treadmill for an hour. I won't do that. I don't think I've ever done that, but um, I do more strength training and weight, and I'll do hypertrophy as well. But there's always some type of dumbbell weight involved. It's not just like calisthenics or um, something where I'm just doing like hits all the time. I have to be actually lifting some type of weight, and I guess it's just me being biased because of my background, but that's what my
So
regime looks like.
you brought up a good point about getting older, as a woman. I mean, I turned 50 in May, so I love,
You look.
weightlifting. Thanks. And I've never been a power lifter, but I've never been shied away from, lifting heavy. Now it's really higher volume, moderately heavy weight, but no rest in between sets. That's my cardio. I'll be honest, I hate cardio. That's it. I'm just going to put it out there. But I'm just wondering, many women who are watching who are getting older, or maybe they don't have as much experience with strength training. Um, what Because I also see part of what you do, and I really hope everybody watches your videos. They're so demonstrative in terms of it's beyond stretching. I love the focus, when you take a muscle and just the movement, the stretching, working the fascia, right, which is that layer that covers the muscles basically, that gets really tight.
Mhm.
So what would you recommend to women who may not have the same experience that you and I have had, but they really want to move optimally and age well?
I would recommend, I mean, you don't have to lift heavy. And if you're going from lifting no weight, you know, your body weight can get you started. you know, and then from there you want to progressively work yourself into like lighter weights. um I'm a big fan of just movement in general. Like, I being sanitary is like, or stationary is not something that you want to be, because things tend to tighten and shorten, and then you feel a lot more stiff when you're moving. So even if you're doing body squats, you know, and you're doing a volume of them, and you're going from just sitting for long periods of time and never doing any type of weight training, then that's a step in the right direction. You know what I mean? And it's still a functional movement, and you even still need to perfect that, because there's some people who can't even do a body squat correctly. You know, so if you get the form down, then you can gradually start working your way into weights. And don't be afraid of the weights. Don't feel intimidated. You don't have to go heavy, but just enough to challenge yourself. You know, and I feel like women kind of shy away from that, especially as we get older. And not only women, just people in general, as we get older, they kind of become more stationary. And in my expertise, when I deal with NFL players, NBA players, retired athletes, at the end of the day, they're like, Tina, I just want to be able to move without pain.
Mm.
I want to, like, they've done the things, they've reached the goal, they competed on a competitive level, on an elite level. And so they beat their bodies up and did what they needed to
Mhm.
do. But then now it's like, okay, well, now I want to be able to get out of bed without feeling stiff. I want to be able to run after my kids, or come, you know, walk up and down the steps without knee pain. And with all of that comes movement. That's the biggest mistake some people come with in my office, is if they have, like, for example, lower back pain, they won't move. So they're
Mm.
like, I was afraid to do exercises, I was afraid to do anything, because um I felt like I was going to aggravate it or be. I'm like, that's the worst thing you can do. If anything,
Mm.
just walk, so that your
Yeah.
body knows that you're still in motion, and that it needs to be in motion in order for you to survive. When you're just sitting or immobile for long periods of time, then you send that signal to your brain and your body that you don't need movement. Your brain is going to go to the path of least resistance, and that's what
Mm.
it's going to do. If it's easier for you to just lay there and you're not exerting enough energy, then your body's going to adapt to that, because it's like, okay, like, we're not exerting energy, we're not using
Yeah.
these muscles, I'm not using my legs. Okay, so now I'm going to kind of shut these things down, shorten things up, because why should I exert energy if we're not using it? You know, it's the job, it's your body's job to preserve energy and for survival. So whatever it's going to do, or whatever it needs to do to survive, it's going to adapt to that. Sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad. You know, it could work for our benefit, and then on the other hand, those are the when people come in and they're stiff and they can't move because they haven't done things for a long period of time. um, but going back to
Yeah.
your question, I think women should just start with the basics and don't be afraid. You know, if you're going from nothing, then functional movement and getting the movement pattern down just with your body weight is enough.
That's good to hear. That's definitely good to hear. And I love what you said about how the body's minds are seeking the path of least resistance. You know, take COVID, for instance, everybody was glued to the screen, and there's the muscle memory, and you sort of forget. And I even personally feel I feel a huge difference when I'm sedentary and I'm, you know, in front of a computer, and I don't move, to just suddenly moving. And it is amazing. Because if you don't, that's how you injure yourself, sneezing or brushing your teeth.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's
Yeah.
small things like that. And you're right, running after your grandkids, and just being able to enjoy life, daily activities even. So yes, you don't have to be an elite athlete, and nobody's talking about, you know, lifting or pushing a huge amounts of weight, but getting moving, stretching. You have it
Yes.
seems like you have an interesting approach to stretching. How are you different? You seem to be different. How are you different than, let's say, going to getting a massage somewhere else?
So I deal with fascia, which is the connective tissue that lines your whole body. You know, it
Why
lines
is
your
that
muscles,
important?
your
Why is
it's
fascia
important.
important?
It's important because it's its own synergy. So it's its own inner networking. So when the example a lot of people like to give is like when you cut your chicken, that webbing that's on
Yeah.
there that we remove, well, we have, that's fascia for us. That's what we have. um Back in the day when they were doing dissections, they thought it was meaningless, that there was no, that this, it was kind of like the same thing when you clean a chicken, there was no rhyme or reason to it, so they removed it. But now they realize it's a synergy and it works with the muscles. So
Mm.
if you're contracting or relaxing, that fascia glides like this, so it allows for muscles to move and muscles to not move, the antagonist or the agonist to happen. They also found that it actually holds emotions. So if you have any trauma, that it has its own memory. And sometimes trauma will get stuck in there. And when you have trauma in there, then you have pain, you have inflammation, you have stiffness. So when you do basic stretches, for example, like a basic hamstring stretch, when someone's just lifting their leg up in the air and they're stretching your hamstring, the way fascia works, or FST works, which is fascial stretch therapy, we're not only stretching your hamstrings, but we're stretching your whole posterior chain. So from your lower back down. So we look at it as one unit as opposed to just your hamstring muscle. I'm getting
Mm.
more muscle groups at one time. So because our body, we're not robots, like we're not like this all the time. In order for me to wave my hand or lift up my arm, one muscle has to contract, the other one has to relax, or the antagonist, one muscle has to move, the other one has to pull in. So over time we realize this. So instead of looking at it as just we're only stretching this one muscle group, we're doing it as a chain, because that's the bottom line is, the chain is what keeps everything going. And if you have one weak chain, one weak link in the chain, then everything gets thrown off. So why would I just
Mm.
focus on the one muscle when I can get two or three all at the same time? So that's what fascial stretch therapy is. There's an emotional component too. I don't know if you're into energy or things like that, but there's like, I've had people come in and
Yeah.
I'll stretch, and at the end of the session they're crying and they don't even know why. They don't know what's
Mm.
happening to them. They've just had like an emotional release because of maybe something, I might have opened up their hips, or they had trauma somewhere, or they hold a
Mm.
lot of tension in their neck, and I did a bunch of neck stretches and it released something. And they'll just, and they don't even know what's happening. So sometimes they don't even know what's happening, like, I don't know why I'm crying, I'm so sorry. They'll apologize to me.
Yeah.
um, which is another reason why I only do one-on-one sessions. So I never have more than one person in my office, because of that. I like to be respectful of the people who are on my table, because I never know who I'm going to get. I can have someone who is going through something, and their pain or their tension or their tightness is more due to emotions, or someone who's super active, and obviously they might
Mm.
have pulled or strained something, or they just, overworked, and so now I need to come in and do what I need to do as far as recovery work. So I always try to be respectful of that, and I tell people all the time, like, when you come, it's just you and me. So it's just you and I want to be respectful. If you do need to release something, or you do need to cry, or you do need to laugh uncontrollably, you have the the safe place to do that. So if you ever come to my office,
Wow.
it's very like anti-doctors. So it's like dim lighting. I do evaluations and things like that. My approach with that is different too. I don't like to tell my clients that I'm evaluating them. I have a conversation with them. So from the
Mm.
moment that they come through my door, I watch how they walk. I watch how they sit and place
Yeah.
their stuff on the chair, how they remove their clothes. Then I'll ask them, like, is there anything you need me to work on? Do you have any injuries, any specific areas? Then we'll talk. Okay, so how long have you had this? Okay, what do you do for a living? Because all those things play a role. So now I know. It's like if someone comes to me
Mm.
with um, shoulder impingement, right, or
Mhm.
tennis elbow or tendonitis in their elbow. If they're a plumber, if they're a mechanic, right away I know it's just repetition. They're doing this all
Mm.
day with their arms. They're turning wrenches.
Yeah.
So they'll get either tendonitis in the elbow, or they'll have impingement because their arm is stuck in this position. So those
Yeah.
are conversations that I have. And then I'll tell them, like, okay, let me see your strength. Move your arm up. resist me. And I don't really tell them what I'm doing at the time. It's just me, just, getting feedback. And then at the end of the session, I just let them know what I found and what I see. Because I feel like once you tell someone you're doing evaluation, they stiffen up
Yeah.
because they think it's a test. So it's like, like their posture's a lot better.
Yeah.
They're,
Right.
they're mindful of what they're doing. So I just like to watch them organically. And just from there, I can decide what kind of protocol I want to go with when I'm treating them.
Yeah. No, I love that. I mean, it's very it's authentic. You're catching them in their flow, so to speak.
Yeah.
You're humanizing it. That and there's something very intuitive with what you're describing. I was going to ask you, what can people expect working with you? And working with someone one-on-one, to me, as it has tremendous appeal, because I've gone through physical therapy before, and it's like a mill. And I get it, they need to get people in and out, get them well. But that's sort of what deterred me. I'm a busy woman. I have my own needs, and it just sort of felt like, all right, we'll show you a bunch of exercises. And I'm like, well, I can do that on my own. And not everybody
Correct.
can. And I understand there are people with serious injury and they need that guidance and stuff. But this is really very insightful. So you mentioned, as we're winding this down, you've worked with athletes and business moguls. Was there a particular, obviously maintaining privacy, but was there a particularly memorable experience? Like, do you remember the first time you actually had a sort of a celebrity walking through your door and being able to help
Yes.
them?
Well, yes, yes, yes. And it's interesting. I take, it's humbling too, because out of all people, it's just little me. So I'm like, you could go to anyone. And then you walk through my door. So that's like, okay, Um, so yes, I was able to help that particular person, and it was an honor. And it was nerve wracking because, again, you understand they have the creme de la creme at the end of the day, you know.
Yeah,
Um, but yes, but it's really rewarding. It's not, even if you're not a celebrity. I
right.
just, what I do for a living is rewarding on another level because it's the before and after. So a lot of people confuse me with massage therapy, or they'll ask me to do massages and stuff, and or they're not sure what's going to happen when they come into a session. And I always look for a goal. So I have a focal point. So I'm like, give me an injury, give me an area of concern. What is it that you want to focus on the most? And that'll be the focal point for the 1 hour or the 2 hour session. So they're always surprised how I pay attention just to that one area, and we get a lot done.
Mm,
But those are the things that get me going. Like when someone comes and they can't lift their arm up and they're stuck here, I'm like, all right, like these before and afters are going to be good. Like already my brain starts to fire, and I'm like, all right, I can get this
yeah.
done in one session. And that's another thing with me. Like a lot of people, if you go on my social media, they're like, well, how long does it last? Because they'll see the before and afters and it's immediate. But I think that's a testament of doing the one on one with people,
Mm,
because when you go to a typical rehab setting, you have to go 3 times a week. But
yeah,
out of those 3 times a week, how how long are you spending, or how much time are you spending with your practitioner? Maybe 5 minutes,
right.
10 minutes each. So it's like if you divvy it out, 30 minutes all together
Yeah.
that someone actually put their hands on you, rather than you come in for one session and I'm there with you one on one the whole time. And whatever gets done needs to get done within the 1 hour. And that has something to say, speaks for itself, because they're prolonging the rehabilitative, I feel like, experience when you can get
You
someone
know,
better within one sessions.
And you made a great point, and I think that's just a part of human psychology. At first, we want instant gratification. Okay, now understand that consistency is very important. So you could get in and get a very focused, customized 1 hour session and perhaps repeat it for as long as you need it consistently. There has to be consistency, as opposed to, okay, fine, I'll show up because that's just part of the recovery. But what I also hear and see is a prevention. The conversation we're having today is so that you can avoid getting those
Yes.
injuries that eventually lead you onto the table of a physical therapist after surgery or to avoid a surgery. So, you really shouldn't even end up there. And it doesn't have to be super complicated. So again, what I'm taking away is just getting some movement in every single day, bar none.
Mhm.
You don't have to lift heavy. Just find really what works for you, stick with it, make sure that you do the stretching. But if you get stuck somewhere, really connect with someone like you, and I'm yet actually to get my butt out there. So I'm going to hold myself accountable and report back because I'm so excited. Um, and then just continue to repeat it as needed. So I think
Yes.
you have something, yeah, you have some, plus people can see you on social media. I love
Yes.
StretchBoss. How did you come up with that?
I didn't even give myself the name, the Stretch Boss. My coworker did. So when
Really?
I was working for a facility, and it wasn't your typical rehab setting. Just like you said, it was like a mill, right? Everyone's coming in
Yeah.
and out. But I had just left a place where it was a mom and pop's rehab. So we did do a lot of one on one, and I rehabbed people who had hip replacements, knee replacements, things like that. This particular place was very fast paced, and they were like, just stretch that person, stretch that person. I'm like, I didn't go to school just to stretch people. This is kind of crazy. Like, where's the corrective exercises? Like, what am I doing? So once I found out that that was the regime and they wanted me to just stretch people, I said, okay, what can I do to get the most bang for my buck and my patients? Because I only had them for like 10 minutes. My hands were on them for like 10 minutes. So that's when I found FST. But when I got certified for that, I didn't know that they were teaching me a full body routine. I just thought it was like some techniques, but it was a whole 1 hour full body stretch routine that I learned. And at the end of the seminar, which it's a 1 week course that you have to take, she was like, okay, well, now you can charge. You can do one-on-one full body stretches. So I was like, oh, I can charge just to do this? She's like, yeah, you can just do a whole body stretch. I was like, all right. I started doing it as a side hustle. And
Mm.
my patients that I were working on started asking me, like, hey, can you also work on my lower body? I'm like, sure, but I'm going to have to do it on the side. This is how much I charge. I could do a full body routine. And I started to get a lot of people. So I had a coworker who was a little bit of a skeptic. So he was like, why are these people coming in here asking for you? And I was like, he's like, what's going on with this stretch? And I was like, he's like, you know what? He played softball. He's like, one night after work, I want you to stretch me. I said, okay. He's like, I'll tell you. I'm going to give you the feedback. And I was like, all right, fine. So one night I stretched him. The next morning he raved about it to all my coworkers. And I didn't have social media. And he was like, you need an
Mm.
Instagram. I said, no, I don't want it. Like, word of mouth is fine. Because it really was just something on the side. And I said, no, just word of mouth is fine. I'm working here. Whatever little I make on the side is cool. And I was like, I'm not big on social media. Like, and he's like, no, you need we're going to start your Instagram today. So he's like, the word stretch has to be in it. I'm like, all right. And now I'm working, like I'm in the middle of like working on patients. And when the acting doctor wasn't there, then I was the one who ran the office. It was between him and I. So that day he just so happened not to be there. And I was telling someone to do something. And they were going through names, Stretch Queen, Stretch Diva. Like they're yelling names at me while I'm at work. And I'm like, I don't know, whatever you guys want to do. And I was in the middle of telling someone to do something, and they were like, "Boss, Stretch Boss," because she's the boss. Because I
There you
would,
go.
I was in charge that time, and they used to joke with me like, "Oh, Tina's the boss today. Like we have to listen to Tina." They're like, "The Stretch Boss. That's your name. You're not a
Love
diva.
it.
You're not a, like."
No.
So it's the Stretch Boss, and that's how I got my name. I didn't even. I said, "Okay, if that's what you guys want it to be, that's cool." And then the rest is history.
Yeah, no, and it sticks. It definitely does. I could see that because you're a very powerful person. And I love your looks. You're like a chameleon. And it's yeah,
Thank you.
I think it's very, very fitting. And I'm telling you, your videos are incredible. It's like I watch it, I'm going, oh my God, I feel so tight. Um, so it's been this has been a really great conversation. And I can see us continuing and just really sharing more information as people people are trying to figure out how to feel better. So I really, really appreciate you sharing your story here today.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. And also to our listeners and viewers, if you want to learn more about Tina Rivera, the Stretch Boss, and her incredible work, be sure to check out her Instagram, a website. We are posting the links below, obviously. And do not forget to hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel, Beyond the Bar Podcast. Follow us on all social media channels. And until next time, stay curious and stay inspired.